أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى عترة الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to our series of talks entitled Thinking It Through, in honor of Imam Muhammad al-Baqir al-Islam, whose shahadat we will be commemorating in a few days' time. Today's talk, we are going to be discussing Adaalat. We have gone through looking at proving that God exists and that he must be one God. Adaalat follows on very naturally because Adaalat actually makes Tawheed complete and gives meaning to Nubuwah, Imama and Qiyamah. Imam Ali alayhi salam says Tawheed means he should not come into your conjecture. Adaalat is that you must not accuse him of anything. So what does Adaalat mean? Well, it's justice. But in what way when it comes to looking at Adaalat on Allah? It means that Allah is for all his creation a just master. No injustice in his decisions. Nothing bad comes from Allah. Allah does not fail to do whatever is necessary. When he commands or tests his creation, he never goes beyond our capabilities. He does not keep anything where it does not belong. So, for example, he cannot put a mu'min in hell. He always gives reward to those who deserve it. He decides whether to punish or forgive. And if he punishes, he never goes beyond what an individual deserves. He does not make people do things and then punish them. So putting it in one sentence, Adaalat literally means to put everything in its rightful place. The meaning of God's justice is to neither remove the rights of a person, nor give the rights of one to another, nor to discriminate between people. Allah in His Holy Quran, in Surah Nisa, Surah number 4, verse 40 says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Inna Allaha la yazlimu mithqala dharra. Surely Allah does not do injustice even to the weight of an atom. And because we know that Allah does not do injustice, He is just, which is something that He has put on Himself. Therefore, whatever situation we find ourselves in, whatever Allah decides for us, we know that there is justice in that. And if the situation we find ourselves is due to other people because of the free will of mankind, then we know that Allah will compensate us. Sometimes the problem is Adaalat is confused with equality. Equality is not actually a condition for justice. If I give you an example here, for example, in a class, if I, as a teacher, set a test, and when I'm marking that test, I give everyone equal marks, exactly the same marks, that's equality. But that's not just. Justice is giving marks according to their ability and the effort that each student put in. Another example, if you have a large oak tree and a small sapling, equality would be to give them the same roots. Justice would be to give according to their sizes. Allah created us all differently, but He did not discriminate. Again, let me give you an example here to explain what discrimination is. For example, if we have two glasses, both filled to the top, one may be a 5-litre glass and one may be a 2-litre glass. They're different. Discrimination would be to fill one half and fill the other one full. But justice is to fill according to what they require. Men and women are different. We have different roles, different responsibilities. But Allah has not discriminated between us. If to understand justice, if we look at the opposite, which is oppression, and where oppression comes from, then we understand why God must be adil. He must be just. The source of oppression is down to 4 things, generally. Ignorance, jahil, where someone doesn't know that they're being unjust. Allah is all-knowing, so He cannot be cast into this category. Sometimes people are oppressive because of a need that they have, because they want status, because they want money, because they want power, because they're forced into being oppressive. Again, Allah is needless. Sometimes people are oppressive because of the lack of power they have, because they do not have the ability to be just. Again, Allah is all powerful. Sometimes people are unjust because of selfishness, because it suits them, because it works for them, or because they're being selfish for their families or their loved ones. Again, Allah is the most kind, the most loving. He is unbiased. If I give you an example here of how we as human beings are very selfish, and we really think of ourselves first and foremost and those that we love. This is a story about a man who is going to mosque to pray. And on his way, he passes past his daughter's houses. He's got two daughters. So he goes to the first daughter and he says, I'm going to go and pray. What would you like me to pray for? So the first daughter tells him to pray for rain, because her husband is a farmer and it hasn't rained for a few days, and the crop need water, need rain. So he says, okay, and he continues. Then he comes to the second daughter's house and he does the same thing. He goes in and he asks her, what would you like me to pray for? And the second daughter says, can you pray for sunshine? Because her husband is a pot maker and he needs the clay to harden by the sun. Now the man's very confused. What should he pray for? Rain or sun? Because whichever one he prays for, one of the daughters will miss out. Only Allah can be just. A doctor prays for us to get ill because that's how he makes his money. A funeral parlor prays for people to die because that's how they make their money. But when it comes to Allah, because He is needless, because He is all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving, He does not commit oppression, and He is just. Let's look at classifying the different modes of Adaalat. We have Adaalat in existence. This is divine justice. This is when Allah is just to all of His creation, where He grants blessings and bounties in proportion to our capacity, in proportion to our potential. He puts us in situations where we can reach our potential. He gives according to what I require for me to reach my potential. He caters to the inherent needs of all of His creation in accordance to what they require to reach their potential. Allah also is adil, has Adaalat, divine justice, in legislation. This is where God's laws are necessary for human perfection, and they are to a level which everyone can handle. So the fiqh that Allah has given us, the Sharia that Allah has given us, the fiqh rulings are there for me to reach my perfection, for my soul to reach its potential and its perfection. And it has to be there for everyone to be able to follow. So the weakest of Muslims should be able to follow the rules. The akhlaq is my relationship with Allah and how more difficult I want to make it, whether I want to do more research, whether I want to err on the side of caution. That is my choice. It is not a wajibat. The wajib and the haram are there for every single person to follow. Adaalat, divine justice in retribution. This is where God is just in rewarding and punishing people, in compensating people. The rewards and punishment are proportionate to the deeds that we've performed as well. He does not overly punish. He does give us more reward out of His love and mercy, and He may not punish us as much out of His mercy. He forgives us. The other thing that comes up when we discuss Adaalat is free will and predestination. Now, free will is the human being having the freedom of choice and free will to do as they please. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Holy Quran in Surah number 30, verse 41, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس. Corruption has appeared in the land and the sea on account of what the hands of men have wrought. So what he's actually telling us is that corruption happens, evil happens because of what we do, because of the freedom and of choice, because of the free will that he has given us. So where does predestination comes in? Predestination is where God is the ruler over all things, all persons, deeds and actions. Here in Surah number 57, verse 22, Allah tells us, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ما أصاب من مصيبة في الأرض ولا في أنفسكم إلا في كتاب من قبل أن نبرأها إن ذلك على الله يسير. No evil befalls on the earth, nor in your own souls, but it is in a book before we bring it into existence. Surely that is easy to Allah. So free will is man's free choice and free will to do as he pleases. Predestination is God's rule over every person, every deed, every action. We are told by Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam that when we look at free will versus predestination, it is something in between. So if you can imagine, if a man is told to stand on his left foot and raise his right foot, he can do that. That is free will. If now he is told to raise his left foot as well, he cannot do that. So there is a certain amount of free will we have, but there are certain things that are predestined. So for example, what gender I was born into, what family I was born into, when I will die is in between free will and predestination, because although it is predestined when I will die, I can change it through my choices that I make in my life. The other reason why there must be free will versus predestination, and there cannot be total predestination, is when we look at heaven and hell. So, for example, Imam Musa al-Kazim alayhi salam explained that if a person is forced to do something and then Allah puts them into hell, that is not just. So either he has free will on his choices that he makes, and therefore if he does something wrong, he ends up in hell, or Allah and he do it together as partners, and therefore they should both end up in hell, or Allah forces him to, and therefore Allah should end up in hell. And obviously the only one that makes sense is that we have total free will in our actions and the choices that we make. But there are certain things that are predestined in our life. God, although does not stop our free choice and does not take away our free will, he does have ultimate control. But he has given us control through our free will. It's like, for example, a train driver of an electric train. He has control over the train, but if the electric stops, then the train stops. So the train driver, although he is free and he has control over the train, but it is really the one who is controlling the electricity that has total ultimate control. And that is like us and God. God's knowledge also does not oblige anyone to do anything. It's like the weatherman. He has knowledge of what the weather is, but he doesn't make it happen. Or a teacher who knows whether a student will pass or fail an exam does not make the student pass or fail. That is the choice of the student, dependent on how much work they do. So God's knowledge does not force us to behave in one way or another. He has knowledge because he is above time. Because when he looks at us, he is not confined by the now. I pray that this has made us understand God's justice in a little bit more depth and whetted your appetite to actually look into it in even greater detail. I'm hoping that through understanding God's justice, we now understand whenever we are in a situation that it may be due to my own free choices and free will, or it may be due to other people's free choice and free will. And if it comes directly from Allah, then I know that he does not test me with anything more than I can handle. So therefore, I know I have the ability to be able to handle whatever life situation I am put into by Allah. Thank you very much. Please join me tomorrow for the final talk, where we will be looking at evil and suffering, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.